welcome to the Uncultured Purls Knitting and Crochet Podcast. This is episode number 2. My name is Lucy. I'm coming to you from Richmond, Virginia, where it is a dreadfully chilly and rainy and disgusting day. Today is Sunday, November 27th. So we've just come off of the Thanksgiving holiday. I was at my parents' house for Thanksgiving, but now I'm back home and had a little bit of time today, so I figured I would film episode 2 of my podcast. So welcome if this is your first time watching. Welcome back if you saw episode 1. And as you can probably see, I've got some things to talk to you about today. No finished objects other than what I'm wearing, and I didn't finish this in the past 2 weeks. This is an older finished object, but I felt like wearing it today, and so I wanted to talk about that. And then I do have quite a few works in progress that I will talk about. So I hope you have something nice and warm to drink. You know, that's always popular on a knitting podcast, to sip something warm and cozy and just relax and listen to me ramble about the things I'm working on. So first is going to be what I'm wearing. This is the Moonset Tee by Ozetta. She's also known as Haley Smedley. If you see me looking down here, it's because I made some notes so I won't forget what certain things are. So I'm just checking my cheat sheet. But this was a pattern that's available on Ravelry. I forget how much it costs. It is a paid for pattern. I think it's around $6 to $8, but I'm not sure. And again, called the Moonset Tee. And I thought it would be kind of a fun, slouchy t-shirt sweater that I could wear in weather that's not too cold. Because here in Virginia, it doesn't actually get that cold most of the time. I mean, we have some chilly days in the winter, but it's hard to wear a wool sweater all day here in Virginia most of the time. So I thought with short sleeves and a little bit of a looser fit, it might be easier to wear in the spring and fall. And I think that's mostly true. It still is pretty warm, but I'm not sweltering when I wear this. So you can see it is a V-neck construction, and the pattern was very good. I didn't have any issues making this. It starts knitting it flat to do the V-neck part, and then once you get around here, it switches to knitting in the round. And as you can see, it's got kind of a drop shoulder thing going. And then you can customize the length of the sleeves. I think I did what was recommended in the pattern, which is just a short sleeve, and then it's got an I-cord bind off. And I'll kind of stand up to show you the bottom. It's kind of, well, that's kind of an awkward thing, but it looks cute if you kind of tuck it into the top of your pants. And so I made the size medium, which is the 3rd size, and the size range is pretty good on this pattern. It goes up to a 5XL, so I like to see the inclusivity there. And I used Linen Quill by Purl Soho for the yarn, which is a fingering weight yarn, and I used the color Gray Denim, which is this really nice, you know, gray but with hints of blue in it. And once knitted, it's pretty soft. It's got a little bit of a scratchiness to it. And I think each color is a little bit different in the linen quill by Purl Soho. So you might have one color that's really soft and another color that has a little bit more of the linen straggly things in it, and it gets a little scratchier. This one is very comfortable. I don't have an issue with this being too itchy, but it's got kind of an open neck, so it's not touching the most sensitive areas like the neck. So I don't know. Unfortunately, you don't really know if it's itchy until you knit it and wear it, but this one is not bad. And what else was I gonna say? Oh, my gauge on this I think was a little bit bigger than what the pattern called for, which turned out fine because I like kind of the baggier fit or positive ease, however you want to call it. So it was okay with me that mine was gonna be a little bit bigger. I could have, I think, gone down and made the small size with my gauge being a little bit bigger. That possibly would have been smart. Because I think I used the recommended needle size and I just accepted it that mine was going to be a tiny bit bigger than the pattern called for. Anyway, so I'm happy with that. Again, the Moonset Tee by Ozetta. And so I guess I will jump into the things I'm actually working on. Number one being a half and half triangles wrap by Purl Soho. And I'll show the one I'm working on in 1 second. I'm gonna show the one that I finished a while ago, which is kind of a variation on the half and half triangles wrap because I use this as a blanket. I had a bunch of yarn from a thrift shop. I was just like shopping at a Goodwill and saw a bunch of yarn that they had, and I was like, it's $1, I'm gonna buy it. And so I ended up with this color, this kind of tan color, and I thought it kind of looked nice on my couch. So I was like, can I make a throw blanket with this? And this was last year, or maybe the year before. No, it was last year when everyone was doing the Purl Soho half and half triangles wrap, and the pattern just seemed fun and low maintenance and easy TV knitting, and I really wanted to make it, so I said I'll do a blanket but using that pattern, but I need to get a color for the other half of the triangle. So I ended up just going to Walmart. I'm not always a yarn snob. Sometimes I buy nice yarns, sometimes I buy really cheap acrylic yarns. It depends on the project and my budget on any given day. And so for this project, I just bought some inexpensive yarn from Walmart, and I got a variegated color to go with it. So it's probably going to be impossible for me to show you this whole thing. But here, hopefully you get the gist of what it looks like. Clearly, I started along this edge. This was my first triangle. I'm cruising along, and then I ran out of the tan color before I was done with this triangle. So I, instead of finding another color to put in with it, I just switched to the variegated yarn early, finished that triangle, and then went to the other triangle. I think it's kind of cool because you get different sized stripes. Like here where the triangle is skinny and you're just going back and forth this way, each color is a very long stripe. And then by the time you get to this part, when the stripes are so long, they're very skinny. And then you can also see that because I had to start the previous triangle with the variegated yarn early, I ended up completely running out of the variegated yarn, and I thought about going to buy another skein of it, and I just like couldn't be bothered at that point for like 3 rows. And so I just had this other yarn in my stash, can you see? Which I thought was similar enough that you can't really tell. And so I just used that instead. But anyway, it's comfy and matches my couch pretty well. So I kind of usually just have that thrown on my sofa. But that brings me to the actual half and half triangles wrap that I'm making. Oh yeah, because this was a worsted weight yarn. So this doesn't really have the best drape to it. It's bigger than the pattern because I used such a thicker yarn than what is called for. So, of course, that project is so relaxing and low maintenance that I immediately wanted to cast on another one. And so I did in the actual linen quill from Purl Soho. So here is the one I'm working on, my actual whip, and of course my cord is too short, so I can't really show you very well. But it is in the linen quill, and I'll tell you the colorway. If I can get the ball band out. Okay, it is the color Lavender Opal. And I'm on the last ball of the Lavender Opal. Here it is right now, right there. This is all I have left. And for some reason, I'm worried about running out. I guess I probably won't. I'm doing the large size, which takes 3 skeins of the yarn. And this right here is the distance of each row at the moment. So if you've knit the pattern, you're familiar with how this works. You do a short row at the far side of your work on every row. It is a free pattern, so I'm not giving anything away. And so each row gets shorter and shorter by 1 stitch. And so from here to here, this is all the row I have. So each time I go to here, I'm getting 1 stitch shorter. But I'm on the last ball of this yarn, and I hope it's enough. It better be enough. But it's just so like squishy and warm and comforting. And the color I'm putting with it, I have not wound yet, but here they are. Ta-da! I'll tell you what this is. Again, it's the linen quill in the color Dark Iris. So it's really nice purple, and you can really see all the straggly bits of the linen. I think that's the linen that makes all the little fibers. But I have 3 skeins of that, which I need to wind so that I can do the other triangle. And modifications for this, I actually am slightly modifying from the free pattern, but I'm doing the modifications that are the most internet popular modifications. So I am doing German short rows instead of wrap and turn. And so I'm following the tutorial that's on YouTube by Caddy Jack's Knits. So if you're interested in doing that, just search half and half triangles wrap Caddy Jack's Knits. And you can see her doing a little swatch where she shows you how to do German short rows. And so I've been doing that because they're really easy. And then the other thing I'm doing is slipping 3 with yarn in front every time I get to the edge. And the tutorial for this is from Leslie Friend from A Friend to Knit With. I don't know if she invented it, I think she did, or if someone else did and she just did a tutorial of how to do it. I think she needs the credit. She's not been very active on YouTube lately. She may have kind of stepped away, but that video is still available, so if you want to check that out, you can. But basically, just every time you get back to the edge of the work and you have 3 stitches left, you put your yarn to the front of your work and slip 3 stitches purlwise. And then you turn and you knit across like normal. And it creates this really nice edge. You can't even see this, and I've got strings coming off of it. But it's kind of an I-cord looking, technically I think it just is an I-cord edge to the work. You can see I messed it up somewhere though, right here. Oops. This was where my needles, my stitches fell off my needles in my project bag when I went to pick it up. That's always a sick feeling, isn't it? When they just slip on off. I mostly saved it, but it is not quite as pretty as everywhere else. So I'm making progress on this, but this project takes so long. I mean, I did put it aside for about 6 weeks when I was working on the Stephen West shawl, the knit along. But I started this thing probably in July, and I'm not halfway done yet. So if you do commit to that, just know it's going to be a lengthy project. But I think going into the Christmas season, holiday season, that it's a really great project to have on the needles because you really don't have to pay attention to the pattern at all. If you can do knit stitches, you can do this and not think about it. And so when I'm spending time with family and hanging out and chatting, I can work on this and not very much of my mental space is going to be taken up by this. So I can participate in all the holiday stuff and still be working on my knitting. Okay. I think that's it for the half and half triangles wrap. On to the next whip. This is a sock, and I've only knit 1 pair of socks before. I'm actually wearing them right now, but probably can't get my leg high enough to show you. Let's try it. The channel's called Uncultured Purls, right? So I can be as unclassy as I want. Ta-da! Oh gosh, there's like hairs on them. Okay. The ones I'm wearing, this is just a free pattern from Yarnspirations. It's for a simple sock with a slip stitch pattern on the top of the foot. And I made these probably a year ago. No, not a year ago, probably 6 months ago when it was summer out. And so I didn't really want to wear them. Now I'm finally wearing them and they feel pretty good on my feet. So it inspired me to make more socks. So here's the ones that I'm actually working on right now. Ta-da! I'm not finished with it, hence it's not on sock blockers. Actually, I don't own any sock blockers, so I'm gonna have to get some before I really display any of these on the podcast. But you can kind of see it. Well, I should hold it this way. This is the Vanilla Socks on Magic Loop by the Crazy Sock Lady. And the pattern's on Ravelry. It only costs $2. And then she also has tutorials on YouTube that walk you through every part of the sock. And so I am making the medium size, which I think you cast on 64 stitches for that one. And I've made it through the cuff. My sock terminology is not good yet. The cuff and the leg, and then it's a slip stitch, heel, flap, and gusset situation. And now I'm on the foot. So right now I'm just knitting in the round with Magic Loop. I'm doing this on size US 1 Xiaogu needles. This is the first time I've used these needles. I actually just bought myself these for my birthday, which was last week. They work great so far. I'm liking them. And the yarn I'm using, isn't this a pretty yarn? It kind of looks like camo, but with pink and purple in it. Can you really see? Yeah. So this yarn is from Wonderland Yarns. Mary Ann. I was gonna say Mary Jane. Can't read. So it's the Mary Ann base, which is a sock / fingering weight, 475 yards for 4 ounces. 85% fine superwash merino wool and 15% nylon. And then this colorway is called Haunted Harvest, which I assume to be a Halloween colorway, but they still had it out at my yarn store where I went, and I just really liked it, so picked that up. So I'm thinking I should probably finish this one in the next week or so, and then I have to go on and make the other sock, which I've heard people have issues with. And to be honest, I had a bit of an issue with that in the pair that I'm wearing right now. You do tend to lose steam on the second sock, but I really want to wear these, so I'm gonna power through and get them done. Okay. Two other things. Actually, one of them I'm gonna save for a later video. So one other thing, and then I have a couple acquisitions to talk about. But here's my last whip. I've been working on this for a while. This is kind of a back burner project, so it just kind of hangs out, and then when I feel like doing a few rows on it, I do. This is a crochet project, and it's a really huge, thick scrap blanket. Ta-da! It's very hard to show you. So it's it's a little longer than my wingspan, so probably like 6.5 feet wide. And so far it's maybe 2.5 or 3 feet long. And this is just a crochet blanket where I'm holding 2 strands together. So as you can see, here's the 2 yarns I'm working on right now. And I'm just doing half double crochet straight across in rows, holding 2 strands together, and switching colors whenever I feel good about it. So some will be just like 1 row, and here I hold this red for this whole section, and then the yellow is this whole section, but the green is only this. So kind of either when I run out of one color or when I feel like I've done too much of one color, I just switch out one of the strands with a different color. So I'm kind of staggering the 2 strands that I'm working with. And as I said, half double crochet, and the way I do it to keep the edges straight and I think pretty attractive is I crochet to the end of the row, chain 1, turn, and then do a half double crochet directly into that first stitch from the previous row. This is kind of hard to explain without doing a tutorial, but I mean, some people will chain 2 and skip the first crochet stitch, or chain 1 and skip the first crochet stitch. For half double crochet, I feel like I've seen it done many different ways, but I think I saw a tutorial at one point talking about this, and the best way to make your half double crochets have the straightest edges is to just chain 1, and that's simply to give you enough slack to turn it, and then you crochet directly into the first stitch and go all the way across. And yeah, so for this I'm using just acrylic scraps, a whole bunch that I have left over, because I think I said in the last podcast I've been crocheting since I was a teenager. I actually think I underestimated it in episode 1. I think it's been more than 15 years. I think it's been about 20 years that I've been crocheting. And with that many years, you just end up with a bunch of scraps from projects that you've done before. And now that I'm into knitting, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm becoming a yarn snob, but I am a little more particular than I used to be about the type of yarn that I'm using. And mostly that's because when you're wearing something as a garment, the yarn makes a difference in terms of how comfortable it is, both temperature-wise and against your skin. And it affects the drape of the fabric. And these were things I didn't really think about when I was crocheting, because I usually just made blankets or occasionally hats and amigurumi, like little stuffed animals basically. And for those projects, it doesn't really matter, like no one cares about the drape of a little penguin that you've crocheted, you know? So for those projects, acrylic yarn is just fine, and in fact it's great because then you can just throw the entire blanket in the washing machine and the dryer, and it's really simple and easy. Whereas with wool items, you usually have to hand wash and, you know, don't put it in the dryer and all of that stuff. And so it's not so much snobbery, at least I'm gonna tell myself that, and it's more wanting to use the best yarn for each situation. And anyway, it means that I have a lot of these scraps of yarn from old projects that are acrylic or some kind of blend of acrylic and cotton, and I wouldn't necessarily see myself using them for most of the projects that I'm excited about knitting now. So what's the best way to use them up? Make sure they don't go to waste. Crocheting a giant scrap blanket does the job. And this thing is really heavy. I think it would be great to bring to a picnic or something like that. It feels really sturdy and robust. And oh, FYI, I am knitting it on a size N crochet hook. Again, I said knitting. I'm crocheting it with a size N. This is just a boy 9mm size N hook, which works well for 2 strands together of a worsted weight. All right, so that is that. I think the only other thing I have to talk about are a couple other acquisitions. So if you're not into that, I'll see you next time. But if you are, I'll show you the other things I bought at my local yarn shop, which I went to last week because last week was my birthday. Woohoo! So I wanted to get myself a couple little treats. And I figured what better way than by supporting my local yarn shop. And so this time I went to the Knitting Bee, which is off of 3 Chopped Road. I don't know, as if any of you guys live in Richmond. It's in Richmond, Virginia. It's pretty close to me. There are a few shops around here. I had never been to this particular shop before, so it was really fun and exciting. So I went to the Knitting Bee and I bought, first of all, I bought the yarn that I'm making the sock out of. I bought this yarn and those Chalgu US1, I think they're 30-inch circulars, but the ones I'm using for Magic Loop, I bought those as well. And then, because these are kind of boring, I'll just show them real quick. I got some more DPNs because a hat pattern I was looking at called for US 5 DPNs. So I just got the Knitter's Pride wooden US 5 DPNs. And I got the Knitter's Pride carbons in a US 1 because I wasn't sure for my sock knitting if I wanted to do Magic Loop or DPNs. And I've started out with the Magic Loop. I think I like it, but I would not rule out trying these in the future. probably my next pair of socks. I will give these a shot and see which I like better. And then I bought, ta-da, this. I liked this colorway. It is Super Socks. It's by Lang Yarns. Apparently it's from, oh no, it's made in Italy. But it is a sock yarn. It's 75% virgin wool and 25% nylon. It is a fingering weight. 100 grams is 420 meters. You know, I probably should have bought 2 of these to make a pair of socks, but maybe I'll just make them slightly shorter so that I have enough to make with 1. And apparently I don't have to wind it because it seems to be the kind of ball you can pull from, so that's convenient. So my next pair of socks will be made out of this. And then I also would like to make a hat and matching mittens. This is the idea I have. We shall see if I actually do that with this yarn or if I feel inspired to do something else. But this is the yarn I bought with that in mind. Ta-da! Excuse me. It is Variations DK. It says yarn by Friendly Products. I had not heard of this before, but here's the tag. Variations. It is 100% merino superwash, and it is Australian merino in the color raspberry tourmaline, and it is 100 grams, 225 yards. So it's a DK weight, which I think a lot of hat patterns are DK weight hats, and hopefully there are some mittens I can find as well that are in a DK weight. So that's why I bought 3 hanks of it, because I figured a hat would probably take 1 and a smidge of the next, and then mittens probably would require 1 other one, so just to be on the safe side I got 3. And I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully in the next podcast I'll actually have something done. I'm a little worried that I don't knit fast enough to have a podcast. You know, some of these podcasts that I watch, people are done with projects every 2 weeks. When they film, they've got like 3 different finished objects, and that's just not me. And it's not for lack of trying. I definitely knit a lot. Pretty much every free moment that I have, I'm knitting, though I do also like to read, but I'd say more of my free time goes to knitting. But I'm not gonna let myself get stressed out, because the knitting is supposed to be something fun that you look forward to, and you shut your brain off and you don't worry about your real life problems. You just knit away in your little happy place. And I think if I start getting worried about not having enough to talk about on my podcast, it might lose some of the relaxation qualities. So I'm gonna do my best not to worry about that. But as soon as I stop the video, I am going to put a little progress keeper, gosh, forgot the word, progress keeper right here on my half and half triangles wrap so that we can see in the next episode how much progress I made. Though my goal, at least on the next episode, will be to finish this sock that I'm working on and cast on the other sock. I've heard casting it on right away when you finish the first one can help motivate you. So that's my plan. And then I would like to at least finish this color of the half and half wrap and switch to this one and get this one involved. So that's my dream. We'll see if I achieve it. And it looks like it's not quite raining out there anymore. So that's good. Still cloudy, still gray, but we're moving in the right direction. So again, thank you all for being here, for sitting and listening to me ramble. This has been the Uncultured Purls podcast episode 2. If you have any suggestions for me of maybe projects I should do, different hat patterns I could use my new yarn on, or just let me know what you're working on. Please feel free to drop a comment, and if you'd ever like to watch my videos in the future, please hit subscribe. Give me a like, all that stuff that the YouTubers ask for, and I hope you all have a fabulous week, and I'll see you in the next one.